The oppressed girl listens as she is insulted, called a despicable devil. She hears very loud noises and threats. Someone from the crowd shouts how she could dare to attack a member of the imperial family. Hearing all these shouts and exclamations, the girl is trembling with fear. She does not want to die at all. This is not what she wanted to do. The girl began to shout that they give her the last chance to tell about everything, asked her how she was able to get into the reception in honor of the victory, and why she tried to kill the crown prince with the help of bloody force. Everyone is waiting for her answer. The noose and all the moments for the execution is ready. Then everything is in the hands of the girl herself. The girl thinks to herself that they are all wrong. She has always tried to save people, but no one will believe it, no matter how much she screams about it. Her thoughts are abruptly interrupted by a voice that calls her to hurry up and answer the presented questions. The girl is very sad. She is grief-stricken, but only in her as if another essence, which for a moment began to control her body and smiling, saying that also did not believe that the white-haired girl wanted to save everyone. Other people notice the smile on the girl's face and call her cheeky. Since she is able to smile so openly and snidely at such an hour, the girl gets even more depressed. She wants to end it quickly. She is too tired. The king declares that despite the vast number of opportunities he has given the girl, he still doesn't see a shred of remorse in her eyes. He rudely sentenced the girl to death by hanging and asked that her body not be removed so that no one else would dare to challenge the greatness of the imperial family. The girl is ordered to follow His Majesty's orders. She reluctantly takes a step forward on the stairs. Her body trembles very much. She feels unprecedented fear, and now her neck is wrapped in ropes. She is afraid, but on the other hand, she is glad that this torturous life will now end. Ordered to remove the ladder, all these events make the girl think that if she tolerates a little, she won't have to suffer anymore later on. The ladder has been removed. The girl is coughing and choking on the rope that is tightly around her neck. The spectators of this spectacle are screaming for her to die quickly. She doesn't belong here. One guy could not just stand by and watch this. The girl recognizes him as Duke Soleil. She remembers that on that very day the guy was wounded by the horns of the monster, but she is glad that he was not hurt. The boy opens his long blade, and with a deft movement of his hands cuts the tight ropes in front of a huge number of people, and His Majesty himself. He released the girl, acting against the king's orders. The Duke began to deflect. He did not go against His Majesty's orders. He just wanted it to be over quickly, and so he attacked the girl with his sword in one movement so that a huge pool of blood flowed out. The girl is very happy that this will soon be over. She thanks the Duke, saying that he was a good man. While he is a little shocked, he asked the girl if she knew him before. She said yes. Fire appears. Everyone is very much frightened by this turn of events. His Majesty is told to hurry to the shelter, because it is not clear what else this vile wench can do. The girl thought about the fact that if only she had met the Duke a little earlier, what would her life be like now? During these thoughts, she thanked the Duke once again, very sincerely and sweetly. The girl abruptly opens her eyes and looks around. She sees some basement, an old and shabby basement. Under her feet, some small puddle. She wonders if she didn't die then, and suddenly her thoughts are interrupted by a woman's voice. Aunt Anna from the orphanage began to raise her voice and tell the girl not to sit idle, but to work and help her instead of ignoring her. She looks exactly the same as she did 9 years ago. The girl sees herself as a little girl. She cries hard and looks at her palms. They are, after all, such small limbs that can hardly be called adults. Suddenly from the back, the aunt pressed a cold rag against her, and in a pointed tone told the girl to turn around. Let her do something. After all, tomorrow was such an important and special day. She needed to prepare for it. The girl experiences some sense of déjà vu, and the feeling that she has returned to that very day. It just shocked her. Her knees began to tremble with fear. What if the situation is 1 in a million? Aunt Anya points to the girl to stand up and spread her hands apart, because she needs to wipe it. But the girl stops her and asks her to wait a bit. The white-haired girl needs to check something. The girl assumed that the aunt was very busy, as she needed to wipe other children. So she stood up and put her palms up to her aunt and asked her to give her a towel. The girl would wipe herself. She smiled very sweetly and looked at her aunt with innocent, childish eyes. The girl repeated that she should give the towel quickly, and the aunt gave it to her and asked the girl to wipe herself there and sit quietly. In response, she heard the girl's positive answer that she would obey her aunt and sit quietly. The girl remembers that if her memory serves her correctly, the child who will be wiped after her will fall down. She looked out and saw the picture of the child falling down, and the aunt yells at him. Because of him, she will have to draw water again. The girl hid herself so that no one would see and began to sit as quietly as possible like a mouse. She realizes that she is really back. It's all for the truth. She went back 9 years to the very beginning. Now she will have to go through this hellish life all over again. Just thinking about it makes her hug her knees, and she starts to feel sad. If she has to go through this miserable end again, when she was hanged in front of the crowd. She covers her face with her hands, unable to imagine how this is even possible. She is so sad to think of it all happening again. But somehow her thoughts are interrupted by a very interesting thought. Maybe this is her chance. Whatever it is, first she needs to escape from this orphanage. The girl took a towel, contemplating an escape. The girl must escape from the orphanage at any cost, because that's the only way she'll be able to get away from that man. Raphia Grenier is the only survivor of the Grenier clan. She is a special child with spiritual powers that only a few in the clan line can use. This is the main character, a white-haired girl with bright red eyes. The Grenier clan, with special powers, has long been used for the benefit of powerful people, and their end has always been tragic. And in order to prevent a series of unfortunate events, they have hidden in a refuge in the most precipitous gorge of the continent, Magente. There they built a village and lived peacefully, but it didn't last long. There was a terrible disaster in the forest. It wasn't a forest wildfire. It was just the way it happened. The name of the clan was coming to an end. Then the girl was very scared, but a man vouched for her. He asked the elders to help save the girl. They may not know, but they must trust Raphia to the will of God. On this note, the child was asked to bring to them. She was told that her power would someday manifest itself, but that she must hide it and live in peace and never forget who she is. After these words, she was saved from the horrors of the fire. Raphia was picked up by a guy and started joking that they were not standing there for nothing. Someone got out of there, but only one child. Maybe he should go and get someone out of there, to which his companions called the guy a moron, because in such a coincidence, they would also burn, and that they would have to take only that child. The girl looked into the fiery forest and started screaming, calling for her mom. She screamed inconsolably and for a long time, crying and praying for her mom to come back alive. The guys began to discuss among themselves whether this was the place the man was talking about, to which the other one replied that it was, and if they left the girl at the shelter, their work would be done. The girl was dragged to a strange orphanage, putting the children to work. They said they were helping them become self-sufficient, but in reality, they received huge donations. And since the children were the source of income for the orphanage, they hired a lot of guards to watch the children. Raphia thought about the fact that if she ran away again without thinking things through, she would be captured again, and her supervision would be even harsher. She only had one chance. The man would come to get her today. And they came. The same man. He told Raphia that he was glad to meet her, but here she was scared to say the least. She was told she had a new guardian and to be courteous and do things carefully. The process of signing the contract began. The man in the dark robe took a quill and began to sign, while the girl was told to wait a little while, and she would already be under his guardianship. She counted down the time in her mind and moved forward sharply, trying to make a run for it. Everyone was ordered to catch the girl, not stand there like a statue. Raphia spilled a barrel of liquid along the way so that the guards would hit the puddle and fall, thus unable to catch up with her. Suddenly she gets there and sees a dead end. The guards are already approaching her. One of them suggests breaking her leg so that she can't run. The other one is not against the idea and says that the guardian is not against it either. The girl is at a standstill. She's in tears. She doesn't want everything to end so quickly here. She realizes that she's not old enough to use magical power, but she decides to try it. It's her only way out. The girl shouted for them to stop, and a stream of magic appeared around her. Using magic, she was able to stop the guards so they don't even realize what's going on. Then the girl ordered them both to lose their minds and fall down, and it worked. They fell unconscious on the floor, only the girl fell down and started coughing up blood. She had used a lot of her potential. Her whole body was weakened, and now she can't move from her seat. But here a guy in a robe comes up to her and tells her that the girl has a rather amazing gift. This leaves the girl in shock. She can't move from her seat no matter how hard she tries. She dumbfounded asks who he is, to which she gets the answer that the guy is going to help her and don't let her be afraid. It's a voice that Rafia has wanted to hear for a long time. Hope arose in her young heart, and she begged the young man to take her to Soleil, but not to that man, and she cried harder. Suddenly, she is called to come to her senses. A guy stands in front of her with his hands tied behind his back, and she hears a voice behind her telling her that it's finally time to show her skills. The guy keeps talking. He says his name is Rick Gunther. Then the guy gets close to the girl and whispers in her ear, "Look him in the eye and say, 'Rick Gunther, die.'" The girl is really scared. She's just in wild shock. But that guy encourages her to do it faster, and she started saying these words, stuttering on the word die all the time. Then she saw Rick, who had just been kneeling, suddenly fall off his feet and fall down. She didn't realize what was happening, and the voice behind her just said that she had finally started to use her powers for their intended purpose, and started laughing very loudly, calling her his special child. Suddenly, Rafia opens her eyes and sees before her a completely different picture. She wakes up lying in a cozy, warm bed, and next to her blue-haired guy who tells her to calm down, because he took her to the place where she wanted so much. Soleil. Rafia was very surprised and even happy after she found out they were in Soleil. After a moment, the girl recognized the guy as Kazan Soleil. The guy caught her gaze and said that he guessed that the girl knew him and therefore offered to talk at once. Rafia sat down next to Kazan at the table. She sees a huge variety of delicious food. The guy offered the girl to eat because most likely she was hungry after 3 days of sleep, for which Rafia thanked the young man. The guy handed the cookies to Rafia. She took them in her hands and tasted them. She started to admire how delicious they were. Then she thanked Kazan for saving her, but he just said no, it's not worth it, and added, "Instead tell me, just before you fainted, why did you ask me to take you to Soleil?" No matter how much he thought about it, neither he nor his family had any connection to it. This question stumped the girl. She doesn't know how to explain it to him. Yuri, who was her guardian in her past life, was not the only person. Several people called each other Yuri and used her for all sorts of evil deeds. Even though they had a grudge against the Duchy of Soleil, they couldn't even think of laying a finger on it because of the threat Kazan Soleil posed to them. Rafia replied that she thought that only the Duchy of Soleil could protect her. After these words, Kazan took another sip of tea. As suddenly the girl knelt down, she began to beg and plead for him to let her stay here. She was willing to do anything to stay here. Kazan wondered what this little girl could do with such a small body, but she continued to beg, saying that it might be hard now, but if he gave her 3 more years, then she would be able to do anything. The guy asked what, for example, she could do, and she said that if Kazan hates someone, the girl can easily kill that person. This shocked the guy a little, and he asked, "How will you kill?" The girl said that now, of course, she couldn't do it, but when the power comes, she definitely could. Whereupon Kazan sat down on his knee and said that he liked the girl's confidence and would let her stay, as he had just the right role for her, the role of his wife. The girl was very much surprised and screamed, asking if she understood him so. In response, she got the answer that of course one of them has to reach the age of majority before getting married. But now it is possible to be engaged. After which he said that it is not a big deal that she is not an aristocrat, and he will deal with it and gave her a choice. She can either become his wife or refuse. Kazan said that for now it was the only thing she could be useful in. The girl thought to herself that until she was an adult, or until her powers manifested, whereupon she bowed low to the lad and said that from now on she would serve her master, and one day she would be sure to repay his kindnesses. Kazan said that it's good, because she chose the right choice, then said that he will go because she needs to rest. She is still in a bad state. But the girl sharply cut off, saying that no, she is fine, afraid that what if he leaves and changes his mind. But the guy just replies that she should not be afraid, because he always keeps his word, so let her rest in silence. The girl began to look at the mansion. It seems to her that she is in a dream. Everything is so beautiful and luxurious, as suddenly the girl was called. She got up, she went to the door. The maid comes to her and says that she should not have gotten up. She asks Rafia if she's hungry, and she gets a negative answer. But her stomach rumbles to the contrary. The girl admits she's hungry. The maid serves her food, saying that children who eat well grow faster, and then introduces herself. Her name is Margaret Cersis, and you can call her Margaret. She's the head maid. She politely asked Rafia to raise her hands to put the dish on the table. Then she put it down and opened the lid. Rafia saw the chef's special soup of finely ground corn and white bread next to it. Rafia takes and tastes a spoonful of soup, and her eyes light up. The soup is so good that it is beyond words. She is very happy. The maid says that it is good that she liked it, and tells that Rafia slept for 3 days, and it made the gentleman very worried. Margaret continued to narrate, saying that even if the gentleman is a bit cold-blooded, he is not scary at all. Truth be told, he is a bit impatient, but nevertheless he is a good man and can take care of Rafia. These words seemed to make Rafia happy. She smiled very wide and sweetly. The Duke and his subordinate are discussing the child. The subordinate Rick Gunther says it's strange, and maybe she was raised as an assassin, but he gets an answer from Kazane, who says that assassins are raised in such a way that they can't take their eyes off their prey for a second, while Rafia couldn't even look at him once properly. The Duke said that this child is just hiding something, but he can't do any harm to him. He said that the report was too boring and the Duke will find out about this child himself, and Riku said that he should have his schedule in the capital, so let him go and look for Josh, and ordered him to take the priest with him on the way, and the Duke doesn't care if it attracts the attention of the imperial family. After these instructions, the servant bowed and said that he will do everything and bring the priest as discreetly as possible, and then he left. Kasane thinks the more he thinks about it, the weirder he thinks that kid is. The girl was told that tomorrow they will bring a priest, but it frightened her very much, because the priest can find out about her abilities. If they manifest themselves, she is very much worried, and asks to take them together with the priest and the doctor. Suddenly Rafia shouted that she didn't want to see a priest. Kazine thought about the fact that the doctor had said that it was no big deal that she slept for 3 days. That's why he wasn't going to call a priest before. But he was worried about why she was so worked up now. Maybe she had some bad memories related to priests or the temple. Or maybe the temple has summoned all the orphans of the country in the name of the priestly education policy, as if looking for someone. It's like this child is always running from something. Maybe that's why she asked for 3 years, and it also makes sense that she was manifesting her divine power then, and the Duke was already convinced of its side effects. The Duke asked the girl if she would obediently accept the doctor's treatment, to which she said yes, whereupon the guy told her to follow him, which raised a lot of questions from the girl. The girl called the guy Mr., to which he replied that she was not an employee of the duchy, so she should address him in some other way, and she had to think of a way. Later he suggested that the girl call him Young Duke, since he was the heir to the place of Duke Soleil. Rafia agreed to call him that. The boy says it's time to get to the point. He tells her that he's drawn up a trusteeship contract, to which the girl says she doesn't know what image they want to see her in, but she's never lived as an aristocrat, and so she's afraid she won't be able to do what's asked of her, so the Duke might be disappointed in her. Kazine asked, "And so what?" It doesn't change the fact that he will patronize her. He showed the girl the contract and said that he had written in it all the information and the security that she so desires, and of course education, knowledge, and everything that his wife should have, and added that he would support her generously in everything. Everything that the girl learns will be only her property, continued Kazane. At his words, the girl was a little embarrassed and happily thanked the Duke, and then asked how long the contract is valid, and learned that until she becomes an adult. Kazine says they have come to a consensus, and all that is left is to sign. He asks the girl's name and age. She replies that her name is Rafia, and she is about 10 years old. The guy realized that she is 4 years younger than him. Then he asked if she was going to sign and found out that the girl could not write. He was very surprised, and the girl cried out that she could neither read nor write and had never studied, but if he would teach her, she would study diligently. The young Duke came behind the girl and took the pen with her. He asked her not to move and sit quietly, look straight ahead and concentrate, and let the girl memorize how to write it because it's her name. He asked Rafia for her last name, but the girl said she didn't have one, so they will fill it out without a last name. A few strokes of the pen and the contract was signed. The girl began to look at the contract itself. She whispered, "How ugly." But it was heard by Kazin and became angry. As the girl clarified, she said that her name is so ugly spelled, and the Duke's name is so elegant and beautiful like a swan. In response to this, the Duke stroked the girl's head and said that if she practiced and studied hard, she would be able to do the same, and when she learned to write properly, she would have her own handwriting. In response to this, Rafia smiled and promised the Duke that she would study hard and become a useful person for him, and he replied that he would wait for it. The guy tells the girl, "Good job, kid," to which she pouts a little and says she's not a kid, whereupon Kassane says he should go meet Josh. Rafia asks the guy who Josh is and finds out that he's his secretary, and the Duke needs to meet with him to do the paperwork, but he's getting annoyed at how much he's going to tell him. Rafia asks if she can continue without the permission of the master of the house, to which the Duke replies that this is a contract between the two of them, not with Soleil, so it makes no difference. He called the girl his man. Rafia overhears people gossiping and saying all sorts of mean things about her. She is considered crazy and is looked at with such disdain that the girl feels very uncomfortable. These people are actively discussing her behind her back and even want to get rid of her. From all this, the girl firmly told the Duke that she was superfluous here, and he did not even understand what was the matter and why she so suddenly said such things. But after seeing her condition, the girl is in tears, all shaking. She is frightened and feels even some shame for her existence and embarrassment. She said she would go and apologized that she could not accompany the Duke, but he understood her situation and said that everything is fine and let her rest. The ward examines the contract, wondering if the child was forced to sign it. But this behavior makes the Duke very angry, and he threatened that if he is going to continue exchanging documents, the Duke will just cut him off. The Duke is asked if he really thinks that the child will cope with such a role, to which he answers that yes. Because children are usually different as they feel the time of duty, then he is asked a counter-question, whether it is worth investing in a child who will sit in place, and he asks why they even think that she will just sit in one place. The young Duke continued, saying that whether he liked it or not, he would have a place in social circles that he could not miss, so he would need a partner. He was going to leave that role to the child, and therefore was going to teach her etiquette and basic skills. The young Duke was immediately given advice, saying that if he wanted a partner, it would be better to adopt someone from the Duchy of Soleil, because it would definitely enhance his reputation, and wouldn't it be better to have an arranged marriage when the child grows up? All their advice was answered with, "That's not going to happen." Kazin says that if he makes her his little sister, he can't marry her, which shocked his charges. Then he reiterated that he will marry the child, and when he becomes an adult, he will perform the ceremony, and asked that if they have any questions, let them ask. The servant began to prove that marriage is not a child's game, that it is all serious, and heard that the young Duke said that he would not do it now, but will do it when there will be a coming-of-age ceremony. One of the servants shouts that she's a commoner, and the other adds, saying that the girl is an orphan who has run away from the orphanage and does not know her own identity, to which the Duke replies that it is wonderful that she has run away from the orphanage because it means that she does not belong to anything. Isn't it better to settle the marriage and other troubles once and for all? He adds that if the boy does not like something, he can pretend that the Duke is in love with the child, after which Kassane is told that he may go. Rafia looks out the window at the heavy downpour. The maid Margaret came to her and gave her warm clothes. Worried about keeping the girl warm, the girl told her that she loves the sound of rain. Margaret said that since this is the capital city, there is more rain than snow, luckily. But Rafia doesn't know what snow is. She asked her maid about it. Margaret said that it is white and soft just like Rafia. It is a little cold, but when you step on the floor where there is a lot of snow, it makes a crunching sound. The girl was very inspired by the story. She can't wait to see the snow. The maid told her that if she went to Soleil's grounds, she would probably even get tired of looking at the snow. Later, she included the fact that you have to be healthy to run around a snowy field, and Rafia agreed with her with a cute smile. Suddenly, Margaret warned the girl that she would have to leave for a while tonight. Something had come up that she needed to check on herself, and while she was away, Rafia would be helped to bathe by the other children. It might be embarrassing, but the maid said that they were nice and that she should not be embarrassed. And here they came. Rafia sees two similar-looking girls in front of her. One introduced herself as Nettie and the other as Neff. The girl stammered but said hello and began to remember how the servants were gossiping about her, calling her crazy, and she said that they could be free because she could take a bath herself. The girls began to ask, that she not say, that she would do everything herself when they were around. They had, after all, overcome such competition to be here now. But this raised many questions for Rafia. What kind of competition is that? The girls explained that there was a very tough competition to see who would serve Rafia, because of the washing in the bathroom, male people were immediately excluded, so the competition was a little easier. Rafia is so small and cute that everyone was worried about who would serve her. But now the sisters see her up close and personal. They are honored. Rafia was stunned by this request. She asked if everyone hated her and thought she was crazy, but the two sisters immediately denied it. They explained that it may not be the right word, but it is used to convey that they can't stay sane because it is so fantastic. The girl was sparkling with happiness. She asked if she said hello first. Would she be greeted too? And she was told that of course she would be greeted and welcomed solemnly, which made her smile brightly. Then the girl was asked if she could help her take a bath, and she said yes. The girl began to brush her long white hair. Then Nettie asked if they could bring the girl breakfast tomorrow, and they heard the cheerful voice of a child who said she was always glad to see them. The girls started asking the kid what she wanted for breakfast. She and her sister will be harassing Chef Mark to make you something first thing in the morning, but the girl only replied that she did not know the name of the dishes yet. And from this, the sisters realized that she was not picky and promised her that in the future she would try a huge number of different dishes. After that, the girl asked them if she would ever be able to go outdoors, and they said of course. In spring, they all go on a picnic, and in summer they play in the water. In fall, they walk along the road lined with autumn leaves, and in winter, they play in snowballs. The girl asked if she could play with them, and they readily agreed, saying that they were happy to be near her. They would make sure that in the future the girl would not worry about anything, and now she should not worry about food. And if she wanted to go to the store for new clothes, the sisters would go shopping with her. The girl is happy. She smiles very broadly and replies to the sisters' good. One of the sisters asks if it hurts to be brushed, to which she replies that she likes everything. The girl finds herself in some completely different dimension. She does not understand where she is. In front of her, she notices the gate of spirits, and approaching it in her head, she has a thought that she cannot use her powers if the door is not open, and not yet time to open it, but suddenly the door opened. The girl saw the same man with the blue-haired girl. He asks her to use her powers again. That day, the guy in the robe continues to order the girl. He says that her current target is a green-haired man in a white suit, and that she should order him, the monster, to kill him, to tear him into small pieces. The girl realizes that this is not allowed, but under the pressure of the guy in dark clothes, she had to say it anyway. Then in front of all, the little monster grew to the size of a large and threatening, and began to gnaw and kill the green-haired man. It all hits the girl's nerves very hard. She's in tears. She's scared. She can't forget this moment, when suddenly she hears a voice calling her and sees a light. The light suddenly changes to darkness, and the hands that crawled to her, now clutching her neck and painfully strangling the girl, saying that it's all because of her and that she is a murderer. This shadow comes even closer, and you can see on it the same color hair as the main character. She keeps saying Rafia will ruin everything again, but the one crying and screaming in pain says that it will not happen anymore. She is no longer a pawn of Yuri. A girl wakes up from a nightmare. She cries with fear and hugs herself, holding her knees. She is very frightened. She no longer wants to live the life that she had to live. Rafia approached the karate. She asked if she was late by any chance, to which Kazane replied that she was not late. And the girl got into the carriage with everyone, and since everyone had already arrived, the young duke offered to ride out. The girl asked Margaret if she knew why the young duke was going with them, and she said that he was following them in vain. He wanted to escort them both, and added that he had business in the center, so he was going with them. In his mind, the young duke thinks that if he had business to do, he would take Josh with him, but Mrs. Margaret openly addresses him as an uninvited guest, and the young duke is going to take a walk in the neighborhood, and then say that the work is over sooner than expected, and join them. It's a new year, so it's good that there are no people. The new year is the last week of the year, and the first 3 days of the new year, all 10 days are called the new year, and the people of the empire believe that this period is very important. Usually people spend time with their families to take stock of the past year and the new year, says Margaret. On the first day of the new year, there is a festival where the imperial family treats everyone to a meal, and the aristocracy organizes a congratulatory ceremony for the imperial family. So on this day, unlike all others, the streets will be very lively, which is why the young duke moved from the estate to the capital, continues the maid. The girl said that she was very lucky, because the young duke is not someone you can meet just like that. Margaret talked about outfits, and said that before you choose it, you need to decide on the colors. She asked the girl what flowers she liked. The girl introduced the young duke, and said that she liked the color blue and yellow, and that she had no particular intention of having the maid make up any extra for herself. They went to the store, but it looked empty now. The girl suggested that it might be a holiday. Margaret said that at this time of year there were often no people in the dress stores, as they were out to pick out costumes for the noble families for the New Year's festival, and the maid rang the bell, as it would be quicker for someone to come to them. A girl came up to them and introduced herself. She welcomed them to Madame Florence's store, but when she opened her eyes, she looked at the two very contemptuously and said that she had very expensive outfits, and she did not think they would be able to buy them for the amount of money they were expecting. She pointed to the stall in front of her and told them that the clothes were out of fashion, but they could buy as many as they wanted, and if they bought something there, their assistant could even do a bit of tailoring for them, for an extra fee, of course. She looked at Rafia and Margaret very arrogantly without even hiding it. Margaret was about to object, but Rafia stopped her. That brought a wry smile to Mrs. Florence's face, and she said that the girl knew how to dress. Margaret suggested to the lady that she would just take her to another place, but the girl was worried that she might tarnish the family's name, and that if they left now they would be mocked even more. Margaret said that they would have to buy something now, even if they had to throw it away later, to which the girl exclaimed, saying that we would not throw it away. But she needed to wear something now, so they would only buy a couple of outfits. Mrs. Florence said she would step aside now because she had to sew a custom dress and have them press the bell when they chose something. She hears them asking her something and thinks, why do all sorts of gnats keep bothering her? It caused a storm of aggression, and the girl could not resist and began to shout, how many times do I have to repeat, I do not have dresses for you? The girl is very much shocked that next to the child is Kazane, the young duke. He is very angry because of the words of Mrs. Florence. Mrs. Florence is at a loss for words. The young duke keeps asking her what kind of behavior is this. Maybe it is because he is always at the manor and Soleil's status has fallen. But she only says fearfully that it is not. And here's another question. Then why are my men standing around this dirty piece of straw mat? There is an awkward silence. The duke asks if she's going to answer, and maybe it's because she's an arrogant designer and makes fun of the only ducal family in the empire, and gets a negative answer, and immediately a wave of apologies. Mrs. supposedly realized her mistake. She didn't know they were from Soleil, and if she had, this would never have happened. The young duke concludes that she has different attitudes towards different people. She repeats her apology again, and says she was reckless, and later the young duke himself repeats it, but says that the missus is apologizing to the wrong person, and shows her the young girl, Rafia. Mrs. Florin lay down on the floor and began to bow to Rafia, saying that she was wrong and apologizing to the girl. Only the girl became embarrassed. Because of this, the young duke repeated to Mrs. that the child said that it was burdensome and enough of apologies and let her listen to Kazine. He had already determined the punishment for her. He told her that she would have as much money as she wanted, because he would buy all the clothes and props in her store from her, including dresses that had been pre-ordered and were already being made. It was a punishment because selling dresses that had already been reserved would lower her status, and the Duke didn't care that she would become a hot topic of discussion among the nobility. Or did she think she could get away with such rudeness? The girl began to say that the reserved dresses do not even fit the mistress, to which Kazane said that it is not her business, and if she does not give them just so, then will have to take by force, and she had to obediently obey the young Duke. But here the girl asked the young Duke what he would do with all the dresses when he bought them, and he said he would give them to her, of course. But Rafia replied that she would not like to wear dresses made here by such a rude woman. She would like to donate them to the children from the orphanage and adults from the crusty houses. This greatly disturbed Mrs. Florence, and she began to shout that anything but that, even if they burned the dresses and cut them, as long as they did not fall into the hands of the commoners, to which the young Duke ordered her to shut up and threw her a bag of coins to pay for the dresses. The young Duke has ordered Mrs. Florence not to mention the child anywhere else, and if she misses his warning, she knows the outcome. The maid on the way back says that they have punished Madame Florence very well. The girl asks if she did the right thing, and then Kazane enters the conversation and says that Rafia is young and that he likes what she has done. The guy started to stroke Rafia, saying that every time she was ignored, he was ignored too. But just now she kept the authority of the young Duke with her manner and confidence. What was important for her was important for the Duke too. He asked the girl to remember these words, and then took her to buy normal clothes. Rafia is wearing a cute pink dress that she was asked to try on. She wonders if the dress suits her or not. She blushes a little from embarrassment. Margaret says that Rafia looks good, and the young Duke replies that it is not bad. It suits her, but she is still like a child. He asked the girl why she didn't want to wear jewelry on her dress, because it was beautiful, to which Rafia replied that it was expensive, and the Lord had already spent a lot on her, and someone like her had no right to squander the entire fortune of the duchy. She added that she would repay this debt later, but she had no sooner finished than the young Duke interrupted her, asking why she thought he was lending her this as a gift of his own free will. The girl is asked what she has been thinking with her little head for so long. Let her just accept the gift and thank you. To which the girl said thank you, and her gaze was directed to the beautiful red coat. The girl said that she wanted to attach ribbons to the coat to the sleeves and pockets, and also to attach rabbit fur dyed black. The young Duke told the mistress to fulfill Rafia's wishes. She said she would send everything to the duchy tomorrow morning. Rafia tries on a red dress. It's the first time she wears such beautiful things. Everyone admires her cuteness. But then the young Duke put on her in a headdress. So she will definitely stand out a lot. The guy looks at the girl, calling her a cutie. Margaret turned her attention to this cap and said that the young Duke had tied it wrong, but it should be in the shape of a butterfly, and wanted to tie it up. But Rafia stopped her and told her to leave it tight, especially now it was cold, so it was the best option. Everybody got into the carriage again, and then Rafia decided to ask the young Duke a question. She asked quietly in her ear if anyone had come to look for her, but this made the Duke angry. He asked if anyone knew that she was staying in the duchy, and the girl replied that of course they didn't, but she had run away and they might be looking for her. She was very embarrassed because she didn't want to cause any more inconvenience. The young Duke said that he had been watching the girl for 3 days. He noticed that she was worried and needed to get rid of these thoughts. He took the girl's nose and pulled it a little, and then continued talking. Answering her question, he told her that no one had come for her, and Rafia felt calm. The guy continued talking. He said that the security of the duchy is not that weak, so it's a waste of emotions to worry about it. From the moment Kazane took her hand when he taught her how to write her name, from that moment everything she has experienced in the past doesn't matter, because now she is his man, and the young Duke will protect her, so there is no reason for her to worry. The carriage has arrived at the place. The girl is met by her sisters. They admire her beautiful image. Considering her a real charmer, they ask about everything that happened to her, whether she liked shopping, and said that they were waiting for her very much and missed her. Neff and Nettie gave the girl a present and asked her to open it. It was a picture book, on the first page of which the sisters and different foods. Neff said that she likes sweet and salty, but Nettie would prefer something flavorful, and if the picture has a smiling face, It means that the food has a certain taste. Rafia thanked her little sisters profusely, cradled the book in her arms, and said it would be her most prized possession from now on. The young duke accompanied to that shelter. Surprisingly, everything was very quiet. Even the mice do not run here. But suddenly they smelled the smell of rotting corpses. The young duke opened his sword and swung it, then said, "What a mess this place is! The energy of the sword is too weak." He tried to concentrate, but the sword broke again. Rick comes up to the guy and asks how the swordmaster is training. This really pissed off the young duke. He asked not to be called that anymore. Then Rick changed the subject and said that Josh is looking for him. The thing is that the New Year's invitations have arrived. Josh is now in the office. Rick asks the young duke if he will open the invitation and gets the answer that there's no point, as the duke knows what's in it, and adds that he has something to tell Rick. So Kassane calls Rick with him, but before he does, he asks him to take care of that sword. Josh is a little shocked that Mr. Rick brought the young duke so quickly. He also noticed that the guy has not opened the letter yet. He hopes that the young duke will keep the letter. The young duke was asked to at least think about it, to which he replied that he had thought about it, but had made up his mind that he would not go to the New Year's festival. He asked that as soon as dawn appeared, they prepare to go to the estate. The guy is asked if he doesn't want to participate at least in the New Year's festival in honor of the first day of the new year. Josh supports Rick and says that the absence of the young duke at the festival may cause displeasure on the part of the emperor, and they don't even ask to participate for 3 days, at least one. But the answer is the same. I don't want to. He was asked at least the reason for such an inveterate no, and the young duke said it was because of the child, because of Rafia, for she was very worried and anxious that she might be taken back to the orphanage again. In this case, the guy was offered an alternative. It sounds so that until the end of the New Year's festival, the mistress will be only in this mansion. Let the duke ask her to concede, at least for a week. But this option did not like the young duke. He said that then the girl will be like a bird in a cage, and how then it differs from the shelter. The young duke says we'll do as he decides, and he's very annoyed with the orphanage, and it's always in his face. Maybe we should do away with it. The young duke replied that that was why he would not make a fuss about it, and would not participate in the festival. Rick asks what the young duke is up to. He suggests that before he destroys everything, he should give a little warning. This idea appealed to the young duke, and he asked both of them not to let anyone notice themselves. The young duke looks after the girl while she sleeps. He doesn't understand why she is so worried. If he looks after her, and if someone comes along that she doesn't want to go out with, then let her say so. Let Rafia only do what she wants to do herself, and not do what she doesn't want to do. The young duke stands next to the bed where the child sleeps. He tells her to grow well, and that he too is curious about the true nature of her abilities. The boy and Rick sneak into the orphanage. The farther they get inside, the more they smell rotting corpses. The young duke says to be as careful as possible. He put his sword out, and they started to check the rooms together. But what they saw in one of them, they saw just a huge pool of blood of corpses. There was definitely some kind of psycho in here. The young duke suggested that this room was not the only one, and that they should look at the others. They should check the whole place. They opened the doors and saw a corpse covered in blood. According to the child, despite the fact that this is an orphanage, the number of children originally here was not more than 10. At least there are no corpses of children. But just in case, the young duke suggested Rick to check the other floors. The young duke said that they should hurry, but he is confused by one smell. He smells one very strange smell. Rick does not even understand what it is. Suddenly they saw a door behind which smells like kerosene. They realized that they needed to immediately escape from the area and ran as fast as they could. A huge explosion happens. They both ran up to Josh's office and reported the situation. They said there was someone who raided the shelter before they did, because when he and Rick got there, all the people were already dead, and now they were probably burning brightly, so unless it rains, it won't be easy to put out the fire. Most likely they set fire to the basement, and it caught fire at a certain time. The Duke doesn't know who the culprit is, but there is a high probability that they are looking for the child, and since they don't know who took the child, they decided to send a warning to the orphanage, turning it into such chaos. The warning was, "You can die like that too. so obey me and give me the baby." But how could they know that the person who took the baby would go there today? It was just good timing. Even if he didn't go there today, the building would have burned down, and there would have been dozens of bodies inside. This orphanage was originally involved in bad deeds, which means it has a lot of enemies. So maybe that's why this incident happened, Josh says. And the young Duke replies that if that were the case, it would have happened beforehand. Moreover, the young Duke observed that it was not just retribution, but professional killings, all with fatal wounds. If not to the heart, then to the neck. Mr. Rick said that judging by the bloody work, if they only knew where Rafia was, they would have come here. The young Duke only confirms the fact that they are clearly targeting the child, a warning to whoever has the child. Divine power or talent, the Duke doesn't know exactly what it is, but they crave this superior power, all of which means they are no longer allowed in the capital. He completely buried the fact that he was trying to buy the child, looking at how desperate he is to cut off all the tails. You can understand that he very much does not want to reveal the fact that he is the link to the child. The young Duke does not know who he is, but he is definitely a smart and scary man. The young Duke offers to think up their plan in advance. He lets his bird stand on his arm and ties his foot with a white ribbon, while listening to Josh's admonition that he will bring the Emperor's hatred on himself for not participating in the New Year's festival. But the Duke only replies that he will deal with everything himself and sends his bird, Peppo, on his way. The young Duke tells his subordinates to get ready because he is going to visit the palace, and when he returns, he should be able to leave immediately. The young Duke bows before the Emperor, calling him the son of the Empire, and asks if he has been doing well. The boy is asked what brought him here so early in the morning. Looking at how fast he rushed here, it must be something important. The young Duke noticed some golden-haired girl sitting behind the Emperor, if it was a new mistress. The young Duke continued to speak. He said that among the subjects of the Copan Empire, he was the first to arrive, and despite his rudeness, he wanted to wish the Emperor a happy New Year. But the Emperor replied that they would see each other at the New Year festival anyway. The guy asks the Emperor to accept a gift from him. The Emperor accepted the gift and was very surprised when he opened it. He asks the young Duke how he managed to get such a valuable item, and definitely the hunting of snow leopards should be banned. The young Duke said that on the way, a large corpse was found completely by chance, and other small ones were found frozen to death. The Emperor says that the guy knew how valuable it was, but didn't take it for himself, and he flatters him by saying that the Emperor should have all the most valuable things. The Emperor says that he is different from his father, then asks what the Duke wants. The Duke replies that his father is seriously ill, and therefore the young Duke will not be able to participate in the New Year's festival and will have to go away. The Emperor was surprised that José Solea was so sick, but in the end he agreed and asked that the lad give José his regards, for which the young Duke thanked the Emperor sincerely. Neff and Nettie do not want to part with their mistress. They are so sad at the thought. They asked that the mistress be neat, to eat good food and take care of her health, for which Rafia thanked them very much. The sisters hope that they will still be able to see her. The young Duke said that since the girl liked these maids so much, let her take them with her. She was beyond excited. The lad explained that it would be good to have like-minded people there anyway, and as it was, she would only have Margaret, so why not take them with her? The sisters are delighted that now they will have the opportunity to work in the main mansion of Solea, because for a servant, there is no greater honor, but they are not ready. So the young Duke suggested that they go in a second group. Margaret said that everything is ready for the first group to leave, to which the Duke asked her to make sure that the servants do not say anything unnecessary. He came alone and leaves alone. They should speak only in this way. But Margaret calms him down, saying that the sisters have been working for the duchy for a long time. They know their job. The young Duke saw that the girl is popular with the servants. The lady is very nice to the chef, telling him that everything that he cooked for her she liked very much. She asked the chef that if she returns to cook something else tasty. The chief cook began to ask the young Duke to allow him to follow to the estate and cook for the girl the most delicious dishes there. Wherefore the young gentleman asked the butler, as soon as they were gone, to give the chief cook leave to go away. The young Duke turned to Rafia. He said that he thought that she would often cross paths with a certain young man, and therefore it would be worth introducing them now. He pointed to a blonde guy. This is Mr. Josh Reincarnated. He is the young Duke's assistant, treasurer, and secretary of the Duchy of Solea. Josh extended his hand to say hello to the girl. He said it was nice to meet her and that she looked even cuter up close, while Rafia introduced herself and noticed how tired Treasurer Josh looked as well. The young Duke began to tell about another of his aides and deputy commander of the Soleil Night Squad. But the Duke can't find him anywhere. Here he comes to them, a red-haired athletic guy. The young Duke again introduced the guy as his aide and deputy commander of the Soleil Night Squad, and he added that the guy is like a big brother to him. His name is Rick Ponter. But hearing this name, the girl remembered the terrible pictures from her past life, when because of Yuri she had to say die to Rick Pontera, because he really died, because she killed him with her own magic under the control of Yuri. She is all just in a wild horror and nightmare, very frightened. The girl cried very hard. She just imagined how much Rick is dear and close to her Duke, and she in her past life to do this to him. She just cannot get over it. She apologizes again and again to Rick, continuing to cry, and with each apology her voice becomes a tone louder. She is already begging to be forgiven. The girl keeps apologizing over and over again, and the young Duke can't understand who she is apologizing to. He asks Rick to turn away, and when he follows his request, he tries to talk to Rafia, but she keeps apologizing inconsolably and saying that she didn't mean it, when suddenly the Duke grabs her by the shoulders and tells her to look at him. The guy tells her to breathe with him. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. A couple more repetitions and the girl has calmed down. The young Duke says she should go to her room, to which Rafia replies that she was just surprised and that everything is fine now. She can rest in the carriage. She adds that because of her they have wasted a lot of time, so it would be better if they leave now. Mr. Josh meets with Mr. Rick. Rick asks Mr. Josh if he really looks so evil that just looking at him can make a person cry, to which Josh replies that it's possible and asks a counter question about the trip. Margaret told the girl that she thought it would probably snow soon and the Knights would have a hard time. The girl said, "It's soft, isn't it? Why should it be hard for them?" The maid clarified that if it snows, the road will be frozen and slippery, so it will be harder than normal days and they will have to be more careful. And it also means it will be much colder than it is now, Margaret continued. The girl replied that she hoped it wouldn't snow before they arrived. The girl felt sick. Margaret asked if she was cold but got a negative answer. Rafia felt something strange for a moment. Was it Yuri? Arose in her mind, while Margaret offers to put on another coat. The girl denies it and says she's not cold at all. She's warm, and if she puts on another coat, she'll look like a balloon. The girl has fallen to the floor. She is very motion sick. She thinks about the fact that if the Duke hadn't insisted on speeding up so much, she would have had time to get some herbs from the motion sickness healer. Suddenly, Rafia sees the young Duke on horseback. He says that they will probably arrive sooner than expected, and he looked and looked at Rafia's condition and assumed that she was not well. He gave her a bag of fruit. The girl opened it and saw a bright red fruit. She asked the young Duke what it was and got the answer that this fruit is called pomegranate, and the girl thought that it was extremely hard to get it in winter, and the Duke found this fruit for her, to which he replied that he took it in passing and let the girl look around where he could get it here. Rafia asks the boy if he's cold. It's much warmer in the carriage, but he refuses, saying that he's more comfortable on a horse, and that sitting in a carriage makes him stiff. The girl thanked the young Duke for the pomegranate and said that she would love to eat it, and he in turn reinforced the fact that she should not eat it through force and let her close the window and draw the curtains, because it was cold, to which the girl agreed. She watches the Duke ride the horse, and an interesting idea crossed her mind. She had a desire to ride together. At least it would be nice. It's not a long way to the manor, but anyway, you have to be careful and be on the lookout, even if they've been riding for a couple of days already without any incident. The young Duke woke the lovely Rafia and told her to come down carefully and not to fall. The girl came down and apologized for the inconvenience, and the young Duke only remarked that she apologized very often. They had arrived, the place she had wanted to go for so long. Solea. The young Duke was greeted and asked how he got there, to which he replied that he was glad, because it was not snowing. The young Duke, even if belatedly, began to congratulate the new year, and he also mutually congratulated everyone. The girl remembered that she had not wished the young duke a happy new year. Maybe she should wait for the right time and then congratulate him. In the capital, the New Year celebrations were to end today. It was important to prepare for the celebration of the new year, but now after a long trip, the first thing to do after a long trip is to rest. Rafia asks the maid what the difference is between the New Year festival and the New Year party, and learns that the New Year festival is organized by the imperial family, while the New Year party is much smaller in scale. On this day, the head of each estate invites the vassals of the family, treats them, and holds congratulatory ceremonies. The girl is noticed in the estate. One of the nobles came to meet her. He introduced himself as Anton Maurice. He is the head of the Duchy of Soleil, but the girl can just call him Anton. Rafia was a little nervous, so she stuttered, but she said her name. Anton congratulated the girl on the new year. She also mutually congratulated the butler. The young duke asked if the child's room was ready. The answer was that the butler had prepared everything as soon as His Excellency the Duke arrived. The Duke said he was ready to show them into the room right away, and he didn't mind the young Duke going with them. Anton says that they have chosen the sunniest room in the castle. This room has caught Rafia's soul. She is glowing with delight. While the young Duke asks the butler if the room is not small, Rafia heard this and began to say that the room is not small, and even if there were 100 people, all could sleep in that room. 100 Rafia. The young Duke doesn't understand what she is saying. He doesn't need 100 people there. He asked the girl if she liked the room, and she nodded affirmatively and said that she liked the room incredibly much. And in response, the young Duke said that if she liked it, then it was hers now, and praised the butler for a job well done. The guy told the girl that he would send someone to her in the evening, and now let her rest, and she should also greet His Excellency. To all this, the girl agrees. The girl had been told that she would soon return with her luggage, and now she stood wondering how to please His Excellency. What if he did not like her? The girl asks the Duke what kind of man he is. He answers that he speaks like Margaret, looks like him. After these words, the child smiled and said that this means only one thing. The Duke is also very handsome. It is very confused, Kazane. Rafia entered the Duke's office and bowed to him and began to greet him, saying her name, but in response she heard his voice and the phrase that she was not taught manners and was ordered to sit down. The girl sat down, as she was told to do, and the Duke said that there were so many places to sit. Why did she sit on this particular chair? The girl was afraid that she was doing something wrong again, and it was not allowed to sit on it. The Duke repeated the question. Why, of all the 5 places where she could sit, she chose this one? The girl gave an answer. She said that since she welcomed him for the first time, it would be good to sit closer. The Duke asked her if she was afraid of him, because usually children start crying at the sight of him. The girl admired. She started a topic that the young Duke and the Duke are very similar, and since the young Duke is a good man, she thinks that the Duke is also cool and kind. The Duke brought cups of tea. He pays even more attention to Rafia, asks how old she is now. She calculated that if the year has changed, she's already 11 or so. The Duke says that then she and Kazine have a difference of 4 years, but she looks younger. The girl thinks that in the future she will be taller than the guy, to which the Duke replied that he thinks that even if she grows actively, she will still be small. The maid spilled the tea quite accidentally, but Rafia reacted very sharply to this situation. She put out her palm to protect the Duke from the hot boiling water. The Duke started yelling at the girl that it was hot, and when she started to apologize, thinking she was doing something wrong, the Duke put his arm around her and told her to be careful, and pointed to the red burn spot on her palm. The girl confirmed that she was fine and asked to be released. The servant girl has sinned, she reports with a guilty look, that she usually has a constant aching wrist, and now for a moment her hand relaxed, and she dropped everything. She bowed before the Duke and mistress, asking their forgiveness. Rafia replied that she was not badly burned and that everything was fine, so don't let her worry. But the only thing is that a doctor was called to the girl to examine her and give her the necessary treatment. The doctor said that Rafia had a little burn on the back of her hand, but it was a minor burn, so there was no reason to worry too much. There would be no scar. He put a bandage on her hand and said that he would come again tomorrow to examine her hand. But for now, she should take it easy and keep the bandage on. The girl said at the table that she was glad that the Duke was not hurt, to which the adults explained to her that she was still a child. She was only 11. If anyone needed protection the most, it was her, and asked her not to risk any more trying to cover someone with her body, because the child's body was very small and fragile. The young Duke said what they would do if she was hurt badly by this. It embarrassed the girl greatly. She looked down and apologized for causing trouble. She thanked them for their worries, after which everyone inclined to get some rest and sleep. And the young Duke and Raffia left the Duke's building. The young Duke began to shout at the girl so that she would never do such things again and would not hurt her body so recklessly. He is worried that if she really hurt herself badly. The girl apologized again, and in her mind flashbacks from the past, when she had to pay an even greater price for using her powers. The young Duke informed her that the girl was his man, and she should take care of her body as well as his, and she said she would do so, and the moment itself made her for some reason rejoice. After that, the young Duke told her to go to her room, as he would be communicating with the majestic Duke. He asked the girl to be careful not to fall, and as soon as she started to leave, he thought it was worth it to finish with this. The Duke tells his son that the girl looked very cute like a rabbit, but at the same time he couldn't tell her such things so openly. And here the young Duke said that it doesn't matter. He heard a question from his father whether it is true that he has already finally decided that he will marry her. To this the boy replies that in any case he should do it with someone at least once in his life, and as even the Duke himself told him, it doesn't matter who your former spouse is. For stable acceptability, the motto is the same. The lower the status and background of the person, the better. The lower the status of the spouse, the better. Only this child is a commoner from the orphanage, and because of this, marriage may not be officially recognized, so the Duke sent his plan to his son through Peppo. Anyway, we need to hear about why this child is suitable for this role, but first we can talk about the situation in the county of Estarant. Although Solea is in the north, compared to a normal year it is quite warm, and the corpse must have already started to decompose. The Duke asked his son if everything would be as he thought it would be, and the boy thought what would happen if it didn't go according to plan. 3 corpses were found in Solea. The owners of the corpses are one of the vassal families of the Duchy of Solea, the family of Estarant. After the Count became addicted to drugs, he lost his mind and killed his wife and mother, and when he came to his senses, he killed himself. Fortunately, the daughter did not die at the hands of her father. She was left alone, and because she had been in poor health since birth, her illness worsened, and she died. Hocha, who heard of the story, was concerned that the death of the Count's family would be known to the imperial family. In other words, the reason is that Counts are considered nobility, and even if they are vassals, the transfer or assignment of titles should only be by imperial decree, and it was very obvious that the emperor would send his cronies to Solea to take back the Count's seat that was occupied by the deceased family of Estarantes. The Duchy of Solea had full right of succession to the throne, as the closest relative of the imperial family. But the duchy was not an ally of the imperial family. Their relations had rapidly deteriorated by the time Jose married, and since then the emperor has pressured Solea at every opportunity. But since he had no intention of fighting for imperial power, he made the northern part of his territory. But when an emperor's crony came to Solea, he was eventually drawn into the conflict, and Kazane, who had read his father's misgivings, suggested that the matter be put aside for the time being, and Jose, although he knows that it is beneath moral standards, accepted the opinion of Kazane and silently postponed the funeral. After all, the death of the family of the Count of Estaranta kept secret. The young Duke tells the Duke that the child is just the same age as the Count's daughter, and if they present her as the daughter of the Count of Estarant and make her the heir, the Duke could get rid of a possible headache, but it will not be easy to fulfill it. The Duke asks if this means that the young Duke wants to take advantage of the law that daughters can inherit the title, even though there is a high risk that this fact may be discovered. He suggests an alternative. They have Margaret, for the safety of the child. What if she were to be adopted by Margaret Circe? The young Duke says it is about the county, and wouldn't it be advantageous if they changed heirs? As their family was forgotten by the secular society, there was no risk of being discovered. The Count was a drug addict, And the Countess was insufferable and belligerent, which spoiled all the social evenings. Even their daughter was so weak that she couldn't leave the room by herself. The Duke asked his son if he thought the child could bear the burden of the Countess's duty, to which the young Duke replied that it was quite possible. At first he was not sure, but then he became convinced that she had a certain talent for winning people's hearts. Besides, she was very diligent. He added that he had no doubt that the girl would succeed in everything and would do her best to achieve the best results. The young Duke stopped and gave his word to the Duke, for the final decision was still up to him. He said that he would ask Joss to finish all the necessary work by tomorrow. The young Duke thanked him, bowed, and said that he would personally inform the child about it.